why is failure setting important to you, and how did it change the trajectory of what you were working on in your life?
Yeah, absolutely. And I still use it because it's such a great exercise to go through. And like the premise of the whole thing was, we've all heard like the gurus tell you, like the self-help guys tell you, you got to have goals in life. You've got to set your goals. You've got to aim for the stars. You've got to take the moon shots. And if you get only halfway there, then you're still 1,000 miles further down the line. All of this real positive stuff. And Tim just in his book, the way he was making decisions really resonated with me. I don't know where he stumbled across it from, or if it's uniquely his own. I have no idea. But he set out, instead of goal setting, failure setting or fear setting, I think it might have been called. What's that? Like, he turned it on its head, and Tim does a great job of doing that. And, well, as people listening that have, become Bitcoin investors over the last however many years, you realize we live in an inverted clown world anyway. So if you right the ship, and you can right your mind, and you can start thinking differently. So I was at the point where I'd read the book, and I think probably 5 times in 4 months. And I was going through all of like the little actionable points that I could take from the book, because I wanted to change my life. And so did my wife, and we had 4 children at that time. And we'd come to the realization we were living a deferred lifestyle, which is another thing he talked about in the book. I literally was living the deferred lifestyle. I would walk in, sit down at my desk, turn on my PC, and think, maybe another 10, 15, 20 years max. That's all I've got to keep doing.
Wow.
That's even saying that makes my hands sweat. It's like you're just trapped, right? You literally are a slave to that fiat system. So I started listing down the points. So what was ultimately stopping me from making the decision to quit and take our kids out of school and start traveling the world together, which is what that was the dream thing. If we could do anything, if money wasn't an issue, what would we do? Well, we'd travel the world with the kids. Okay, great. So how do you get there? And I started writing down like the points. What's your biggest fear? Well, my biggest fear for me personally, and it's all in the book, by the way, Choose Life.
Which I've read.
Number one was going broke and ending up shunned by society, living under a bridge, in a cardboard kind of city with my wife and kids. Like, complete and total abject failure, basically. When you look at that, that's where my mind literally went. I let it go there. I said, right, okay, I'm pen and paper. What is my biggest fear? And that's what came out of my brain, through my arm, through the pen, onto the paper. And when you see that, like with your actual eyes, that is very, very powerful. You're like, holy crap. And, thinking about your monkey mind and all that, where are you getting this from? But if it's there, if it's in your subconscious, and that is your fear, then the next part of the exercise is, well, what are the next 3 steps that you're going to take to rectify that situation, if it were ever to happen? And, well, then the realizations just start unfolding. It's like, well, yeah, how would we ever get in that situation? Like literally living under a bridge, like completely bankrupt, when both of our parents were alive, both living in houses with at least 3 or 4 spare bedrooms each. Got 4 brothers between us, both with houses with 2 to 3 spare bedrooms each. All right. Yeah, I don't think we're ever living under a bridge anytime soon. So if the worst happened, then yes, I lost everything and went completely bankrupt, then at least we've got food and shelter. We're warm. And then what? Well, I'd have access to a telephone, and I've got this whole network that I've built up with an 18-year career behind me. I think I could probably make a few phone calls and follow the breadcrumbs to find a job pretty soon. So what am I actually worried about? Where did that fear come from? That was complete and utter total nonsense. But until you start breaking it down and looking at it logically, using your logical mind, that you can start breaking down these barriers, and it starts all melting in front of you. And you realize that all of the risks our perceived risks. It's all perception. And it's a lot of it is controlled by social engineering and the societal construct around you, because you're on this hamster wheel, you're running 1,000 miles an hour just to stand still come the end of the month, because you'll never be able to catch up. You're always drowning. There's always something else to aspire to. And until you can step back, figure out, one, what do I want to be doing in the next 5 years? If it's still sat at your cubicle, go for it. If not, then you've got to start thinking logically and getting a plan in place and trying to figure out what it is truly that is stopping you from taking more control over your life.
It was very powerful. And again, thank you, because pretty soon after that time, I quit that job that I was in, and I haven't worked for anyone else since. And I'm now very firmly of the opinion that I will never work for anyone else ever again. And
what was yours? What was your number one? Like the
very
fear?
similar, very similar. Like a kind of a financial fear and a fear of like a failure. You know what I mean? It's like you haven't like climbed the ranks and done, you know, your part or whatever. It was essentially exactly the same. It's like, well, hang on, what's the calculation is quite simple. It's like, what's your, you know, runway essentially? It's like, okay, I've got this much money in total. How much does it cost to live as a family every month? Okay, well, that's roughly how long we can last before it all runs out. And if it all runs out, I have a family I can fall back on both sides that will help us out. And it's very quickly like you're putting yourself under immense pressure for something that no one else gives a shit about except for yourself.
Yeah.